Welcome to Quranomics. I am Qadi Tayyib SD, and today's article is titled, Would Traditional Muslims Apologize for Their History? And this article is written by Sameh Askar. In the theory of challenge and response, the English philosopher and historian Arnold Toynbee said that the progress of nations will not happen unless those nations settle their accounts with its history. In the sense that sacrifices are obligatory to get rid of the legacy of barbarism, traditional Muslims, for example, should advance, so they must reconcile with the world first. And they will not reconcile until denying their history that's written in the books of conquests, invasions, and civil wars that occurred in the early days of Islam. And now, how can they deny this in the light of strong defenders protecting this dire past? So, confrontation is inevitable with the past, confronting this group that defends the crimes and sins of history, knowing that this group is from the influential in society, whether they are rulers, elites, or clergymen, and the ability they possess, financial and moral mobilization against attempts to change. This is how Europe developed by denying and apologizing for its colonial past with full and sincere belief in human rights of human being. Oh, let's just say most of them, just to be on the safe side. And the human right to self-determination, their own beliefs, and their own freedom. Traditional Muslims ought to apologize for the crimes of conquest and invasions that occurred and recorded in their books first, before they apologize for their sins that's written in the books of the violators. This is how they will advance, and the battles of the ancients become mere history and not a doctrine binding on every child who drinks it in the morning education class and eagerly awaits to become a great military leader as they had them imagined. Exactly as attempts are being made now to consider traditional Muslim jurisprudence as a mere history of jurisprudence, not to be considered in our contemporary reality. Not that the words of Ibn Taymiyyah and Ibn Hanbal became sacred in 2019 or 20 or 22, and they have lived in a time when man does not find anything to purify himself from his feces except stones. And there is no means of transportation except camels and donkeys, and no knowledge to inform them of what has been lost on them from matters of space, planets, and galaxies, and some of which science knowledge has now become available as easy as it is. So how can we take knowledge from these people? And we have advanced far way beyond that. The book Futuh Hasham by Al-Waqidi and the beginning and the end by Ibn Kathir tells how the Muslims who conquered Damascus killed thousands of innocent Christians. Likewise, Futuh Misr by Ibn al-Hakam reinforced with the history of Yuhanna al-Nuqaysi about crimes of the Arab invaders of Egypt in the 7th century Christian era, a short page of an untold story for a hidden need in the elders' agenda of shame, that are well aware that their early ancestors were not these humans who are tolerant of others and not to carry out the commandments of God in the Quran prohibiting aggression, as if is said and written in there, some of the books. The exalted Almighty said of the aggressors, fight in the cause of Allah only against those who wage war against you, but do not exceed the limits. Allah does not like transgressors. Al-Baqarah 190. Also, O believers, do not forbid the good things which Allah has made lawful for you, and do not transgress. Indeed, Allah does not like transgressors. Al-Ma'idah 87. Allah does not forbid you from dealing kindly and fairly with those who have neither fought nor driven you out of your homes. Surely Allah loves those who are fair. Al-Mumtahana 8. And with all this Quranic matter, we find the companions invading nations, or the followers of the companions, and Muawiyah and his son neglecting it. The killing of the Prophet's descendants and their persecution, and Al-Hajjaj, the right arm man, in killing the people of Iraq, even in the revolution of the Abbasid, which is supposed to be based on morality, was criminalized for the killing of thousands of people from Damascus and tying their horses to the pillar of mosques until the leader was called Khalifa as-Saffah. They named their Khalifa to be as-Saffah. Without feeling of oppression and injustice in the hearts, until the Muslims turn into a solid mass devoid of feelings, have nothing but war and desires. As if God has sent down his religion for these two matters only, and do not care about instilling morals, science, justice, and social reform. The hatred that results from these wars is more dangerous to humanity than wars themselves, as they remain in the hearts of generations, and it will not disappear except with a more horrific revenge than what had happened in the first place. Even when the Crusaders invaded the Arab countries, were not only in their imagination to rid Jerusalem of traditional Muslims, but rather to take revenge from the loss of their kingdoms in their era of conquest in the past, and their crimes of the Ottomans in Europe did not feel any better than mobilizing soldiers to avenge the crimes of the Crusades. Then Western colonialism came to avenge the crimes of the Ottomans. And so back and forth between these two groups, and so on until that foolish ship reached us. Terrorist groups of traditional Muslims, of Sunnis mostly, and the far-right mirrored Christian religious group clashing to take revenge on all of the above from the past, totaling everything up. As if we did not learn from our experiences, even with the photos of the New Zealand massacre and Sri Lanka, the last two, the killer did not target soldiers to empty historical grudges, but rather the safe and peaceful under the pretext of religious revenge. So who implanted in the hearts of all these killers that God will accept the murder of an innocent person, whoever he is? And who convinced them that heaven and salvation will not be theirs except by massacres? The lowest point of what we have learned in our schools and mosques is that we must fight to support religion. We did not differentiate between our own interests and God's will. So we claim that God has been embodied in our actions with foolish narrations such as the one he transcribes in the hadith, and jurists fill the ears of the masses, as one of them said about God. This was a hadith that God said in a hadith, I was his hearing, or I am his hearing that he hears with, and the hand with which he strikes with. When an ISIS terrorist kills hundreds of innocents in a market in Baghdad, they say God is the one who did it through them. What foolishness do they lie, and what creed do they believe in? This is the religion of Satan. So by God, what a lie to the people, that what they do and say is from and with God. And when they justify their actions, it is for the crimes of others. As if God had not said in his book, O believers, stand firm for Allah and bear true testimony. Do not let the hatred of people lead you to injustice. Be just, that is closer to righteousness. And be mindful of Allah. Surely Allah is all aware of what you do. Al-Ma'idah 8. And yet the priests colluded with the rulers to justify their crimes and dressed them up in a legitimate guise of legalizing their conquest. Then they established a special independent jurisprudence on the religion of God, and they claim that it is from God falsely. And with the study of any book of jurisprudence, we will see the extent of the crimes that these people have caused by classifying the affairs of Christian offenders and the Jews and all non-traditional Muslims are in the chapters of jihad. So it is not from the religion, according to their opinions, just courtesy that I tolerate the Christians or give him his human rights, or at least please him with what I would like for myself. Rather, they forbade all equality between a traditional Muslim and others until they forfeited their testimony, al-Kitabi. This is his creed, the Christian creed or Jewish creed or whatever creed, in the courts. And more than that, they forfeited the right of retribution from a traditional Muslim if he killed an unbeliever, in example, Christian or Jewish or whatever, and is not punishable. Rather, he may be excused and rewarded if the judge sees that in this killing there is diligence and for the sake of religion. Today, traditional Muslims are required to apologize for their past. That is only if they want to reform or that advance and enter the ranks of civilized nations, and this will only happen by removing holiness from all the people of history without exception. Even the apostle himself was not holy for them to believe in a special legislation that is independent, while the Quran has made it clear as a clarification, it's the Quran only for his people who only saw him for that time, and the stories of the prophet are not all true, as we read in the historical books. As for us and the 21st century, we must work our minds to pray. How did the messenger understand the Quran and recite it to the people? Not that we imitate him in every little thing, or we sanctify those who falsely quoted from him, as priests do by sanctifying and worshiping modernists. And the claim is that their words are a second revelation, as the sheikhs of Al-Azhar recently gave a fatwa. And for you to discover the extent of that calamity in issuing fatwas with a second revelation other than the Quran, which is the words of Al-Bukhari and Muslim and the rest of the minions. While they say that these are not infallible, how do you say what is revealed? They say it in light of denying their infallibility. It is the stupidity that struck the souls of priests and sheikhs because of imitation and their refusal to implement reason. There is no important and firm fatwa from the constants of their religion and their doctrine, except that there was a contradiction in it, and ignorance either of science or of man or of law or logic. So how can we ask these people to renew their religion while they are ignorant of it? They will inevitably make mistakes, or they will be hypocritical to the rulers with formal and effective fatwas that keep them, even temporarily, what they have, an inherited religion that they refused in a moment of arrogance and pride to hold themselves accountable for, despite their knowledge of corruption and incompleteness of humans. And here we end this article, and we just conclude that to start a new page, you have to clear your mind, apologize for the past. We all make mistakes, but at least acknowledge it, so you could accept learning. Because if you want to go into the future, learning is a process. You learn from your mistakes. There's right or wrong. But if you're going to be correct all the way through and no mistakes, you're going to veer off the road. They have to learn how to make mistakes and learn from it and apologize and correct themselves and keep on going. That's how the Western world, that's how everybody is advancing in this universe, except for them. They're backwards. I am Qadi Tayyib SD. This is Economics. Thank you for following, and we'll see you again.